Niagara Falls is a place of beauty and wonder, but it has also been the site of some very disturbing deaths. In this video, we will explore 5 real stories of the most unsettling deaths in Niagara Falls of all time. These are tales of danger and tragedy that reveal a darker side to this famous landmark. It was a summer day in 1981 when 28-year-old Dunya Sayegh, her husband Rafik, and their 3 children visited Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. The family, who had immigrated from Lebanon and lived in Toronto for 8 years, planned a fun day near one of Canada's most famous landmarks. However, what began as a day of joy turned into a heartbreaking tragedy. Dunya was carrying her 2-month-old son, Hashim, who had a mild respiratory condition. Despite his health challenges, Hashim was adored by his family. He was Dunya's long-awaited 3rd child, and she was rarely seen without him in her arms. That day, Dunya stood near the stone railing, only 12 feet from the rushing Niagara River, holding Hashim as Rafik stepped away to buy film for their camera. Witnesses later recounted seeing Dunya suddenly stagger backward, appearing unsteady. She clutched her head and cried that she was dizzy. In that moment of disorientation, Hashim slipped from her arms and fell over the edge of the railing. Tourists nearby screamed in shock as the infant was carried by the current and went over the 162-foot drop of the Horseshoe Falls. Dunya became frantic, repeatedly crying out for her baby. Overcome with grief, she attempted to approach the water's edge but was restrained by her family and bystanders. She was taken to Greater Niagara General Hospital, where she was heavily sedated due to the emotional shock. In the days that followed, search efforts focused on recovering Hashim's body. Operators of tourist boats scanned the waters, but the powerful currents and jagged rocks made the search nearly impossible. Authorities warned the family that the infant's body might never be found. Initially, police viewed the incident as a tragic accident. Dunya said she had been dizzy, and witnesses supported her claim, describing her staggering movements and distraught cries immediately after Hashim's fall. However, just days later, police arrested Dunya and charged her with second-degree murder. The Niagara Regional Police launched an investigation, conducting interviews and running tests with a 12-pound baby doll to simulate the incident. They claimed their findings cast doubt on Dunya's version of events and accused her of deliberately throwing her child over the railing. If convicted, Dunya faced a potential life sentence. The case garnered widespread attention, with the courtroom becoming the center of opposing arguments. Prosecutors claimed Dunya's actions were intentional, emphasizing the height of the stone barrier and her proximity to it. They argued that her story didn't match the physical evidence. In contrast, Dunya's defense, led by Eddie Greenspan, painted her as a loving mother devoted to her children, especially Hashim, whom she had deeply cherished. Friends testified about Dunya's constant care for her infant and her frequent worries about his health, which even led her doctor to prescribe medication to help her manage her anxiety. A witness, whose testimony was critical, described Dunya's immediate reaction after the incident. According to the witness, Dunya was visibly disoriented, crying out in despair about feeling dizzy and repeatedly lamenting that she had dropped her baby. Judge Donald Wallace, who presided over the trial, noted that no one had seen exactly what occurred in the moments before Hashim's fall. He also criticized the police simulation tests, calling them inadequate and unreliable. With insufficient evidence to prove that Dunya had acted deliberately, the judge dismissed the charge. Dunya left the courthouse accompanied by Rafik, her brother Yasser Eid, and her nephew Walid Alawar. A photograph taken as she exited the courthouse showed the deep emotional toll the experience had taken on her and her family. In tears, Dunya expressed mixed feelings of relief and sorrow, acknowledging that what she had lost could never return and would remain in her memory forever. Although Dunya was acquitted, the tragedy left a lasting impact on her and her family. Friends described the immense grief they endured. Dunya, who had already been anxious about her son's health, now carried the additional pain of his loss and the trauma of the accusations against her. Hashim's body was never found, adding another layer of sorrow to an already devastating event. It was July 5, 1930, in Buffalo, New York. George Stathakis, a 46-year-old Greek immigrant and chef, was preparing for an extraordinary journey. George wasn't just chasing fame. He hoped this daring attempt would fund the publication of his philosophical writings and provide him with deeper insights into life's mysteries. Known for his mystical beliefs, George decided to go over Niagara Falls in a specially designed barrel. This was his way of combining his passion for metaphysical exploration with a spectacle that might attract public attention. For years, George had written about his philosophical ideas but lacked the resources to share them widely. This dangerous plan was his solution, Attempting to conquer Niagara Falls wasn't a new idea. Adventurers had been trying for decades with mixed results. Some survived the falls, others faced tragic consequences. Confident his approach was unique, George built a barrel he believed could withstand the fall's immense power. The barrel was massive, 10 feet long and over 5 feet wide. Made from wood and steel, it weighed nearly a ton and was fortified with springs for impact absorption. Inside, he had a single oxygen tank, meant to sustain him during the ordeal. However, experts like Niagara rescuer Red Hill Sr. warned that the barrel's size made it risky and difficult to control. Despite this, George was undeterred. George wasn't alone in his endeavor. Joining him was his pet turtle, Sunny, a creature he believed brought him good luck. Sunny, estimated to be over 150 years old, was placed in the barrel as a companion for the journey. At 2:30 p.m., spectators gathered near the falls to witness the event. Journalists, tourists, and friends watched as the barrel, with George and Sunny inside, was launched into the rushing waters. The crowd held its breath as the barrel was swept over the edge of Horseshoe Falls. Seconds later, it vanished into the mist. To everyone's relief, the barrel reappeared at the base of the falls, seemingly intact. Cheers erupted, but their excitement turned to concern when the barrel failed to drift to safety. Instead, it became lodged behind the powerful cascade of water trapped against the rocks. Inside the barrel, George faced unimaginable conditions. The darkness was complete, and the thunderous roar of the falls drowned out all sound. The limited oxygen supply would have quickly dwindled, leaving George in a desperate situation. Whether he remained calm or panicked in those final moments, we can only guess. Before attempting the plunge, George had told friends that if rescue didn't come within 3 hours, survival would be impossible. The barrel remained stuck for 18 agonizing hours. Rescuers were powerless to retrieve it, forced to wait and hope it would eventually come loose. By the next morning, the barrel was finally recovered. When it was opened, George's lifeless body was found inside. Tragically, he had suffocated long before rescuers could reach him. Remarkably, Sunny the turtle survived the ordeal, a small sign of resilience amidst the tragedy. George's barrel, designed to protect him, may have caused his demise. Its large size and weight likely contributed to it becoming wedged behind the falls, leaving no escape. News of George's death quickly spread, capturing public attention and making headlines, even in the New York Times. The story sparked both fascination and sorrow. While some admired his courage and vision, others criticized his risky plan. Red Hill Sr., who had cautioned George about the dangers, retrieved the barrel and later displayed it on his property as a tourist attraction. Today, the barrel is part of a Niagara Falls exhibit, a reminder of George's ill-fated adventure. Although George's story ended tragically, his bold attempt continues to intrigue people. Some see him as a dreamer who paid the ultimate price for his beliefs, while others view his journey as a warning about the dangers of overconfidence. It was June 5, 1990, at Niagara Falls. On this day, 28-year-old Jesse Sharp from Ocoee, Tennessee, set out to achieve what he believed would be his greatest accomplishment. A skilled kayaker with over a decade of experience navigating challenging rivers, Jesse dreamed of being the first person to kayak over Niagara Falls and live to tell the story. This carefully planned attempt, however, would end in tragedy. Jesse was no novice. Known in his community for his expertise on the Ocoee River, he chose a Red Dancer C1 canoe, often mistaken for a kayak, for his daring feat. He spent years studying the falls and refining his approach, convinced he could defy the odds. To Jesse, this was not a reckless act, but a calculated challenge he was determined to conquer. His strategy was unconventional. He believed that by paddling at high speed as he approached the edge, he could avoid being overwhelmed by the force of the water. He had mapped out a path through the dangerous rapids below and planned to paddle 4 miles downstream to Lewiston, New York. Jesse even made dinner reservations at a restaurant in Lewiston and parked his car nearby, confident he would succeed. Unlike others who attempted stunts at Niagara, Jesse refused to use safety gear. He avoided wearing a helmet so his face would be visible in photos and videos and declined a life jacket, thinking it might hinder his escape from the kayak if needed. A few friends accompanied him to the falls to document the event, though no recordings have ever surfaced. As Jesse paddled toward the Horseshoe Falls, workers at a nearby hydroelectric power station spotted him and tried to intervene by reducing the water flow. Despite their efforts, Jesse continued. Witnesses described the moment he raised his paddle in triumph before vanishing into the powerful waters at 1:45 p.m. For a brief moment, silence followed the roar of the falls. Onlookers anxiously searched the river below. Minutes later, Jesse's paddle emerged, followed by his red kayak, which had only a small dent, but Jesse himself was nowhere to be found. Search efforts began immediately, but the area below the falls was too treacherous for divers or boats. The powerful currents and unpredictable whirlpools made recovery nearly impossible. Days passed, then weeks, but Jesse's body was never found. Authorities speculated that it might have been trapped beneath the falls or carried far downstream. The public reacted with a mix of fascination and sorrow. Some admired Jesse's adventurous spirit, while others criticized his actions as unnecessary and dangerous. Friends described him as passionate about kayaking and determined to prove what many thought was impossible. One friend remarked that in whitewater, people would often claim something was impossible, but its feasibility remained unknown until someone attempted it. Jesse Sharp became the 13th person known to intentionally go over Niagara Falls. His attempt stood out because he used a kayak instead of the barrels or inflatable containers typically used by daredevils. Of those 13, 4, including Jesse, lost their lives. His death showed the extreme risks involved and prompted authorities to increase fines for similar acts to $8,500. Jesse's loved ones mourned his loss, while others in the kayaking community reflected on the dangers of such extreme challenges. Experts stressed the importance of specialized equipment and thorough preparation for attempting feats of this magnitude. Jim Snyder, a paddling expert, noted that surviving a waterfall like Niagara's required not only a flawless plan, but also a vessel specifically designed for such a task, something Jesse did not have. What drove Jesse to take such an extraordinary risk? Was it misplaced confidence in his abilities, or a deep desire to push the limits of human capability? These questions remain unanswered, as does the mystery of what happened to him beneath the falls. On October 1st, 1995, the atmosphere near Niagara Falls was alive with excitement. Among the many tourists admiring the breathtaking Horseshoe Falls, one man stood out. Robert Overacker, a 39-year-old stuntman from Camarillo, California, was preparing for a bold feat to raise awareness for homelessness. He planned to ride a jet ski over the falls and land safely using a rocket-propelled parachute. Robert was not new to stunts. A stunt school graduate, he had spent 7 years planning this attempt. Although friends had previously convinced him to postpone the idea, this time he was determined. His jet ski carried a sign reading, "Save the Homeless," symbolizing his mission. At 12:35 p.m., Robert entered the Niagara River near the Canadian Niagara Power Plant. Wearing a wetsuit and a specially designed parachute pack, he powered up his jet ski and began moving toward the falls. His stepbrother and a close friend were among the thousands of spectators, ready to capture the moment. As he approached the edge of the Horseshoe Falls, Robert appeared calm and focused. Onlookers watched in amazement as he maneuvered the turbulent waters with precision. When he reached the brink, he leaped off his jet ski, activating the rocket intended to release his parachute. Initially, it seemed to work, but something went wrong. A critical error had occurred. The parachute detached from Robert's body instead of deploying. Instead of a controlled descent, he fell 51 meters into the powerful waters below. Chaos erupted at the base of the falls. The Maid of the Mist tour boat was nearby, and its crew immediately responded. Some spectators initially believed Robert might have survived, mistaking the motion in the rapids for swimming. Tragically, this was not the case. The crew recovered Robert's body and brought him to shore. Despite their efforts and further attempts to save him, he was pronounced dead an hour later at Greater Niagara General Hospital. The injuries he sustained from the impact made survival impossible. News of Robert's death spread quickly, with many horrified by the footage of the event. Witnesses provided vivid accounts of the tragedy. One recalled watching from a hotel balcony, thinking Robert had succeeded, only to realize something had gone terribly wrong. In the aftermath, questions arose about the stunt's safety precautions. It was revealed that Robert had not packed the parachute himself, a likely cause of the malfunction. For a stunt prepared over 7 years, this oversight proved to be a devastating mistake. Robert's wife, Lori Overacker, was left grieving her husband. The couple had no children, and Lori had to navigate the heartbreak and consequences of his fatal attempt to raise awareness. Robert's death marked him as the 15th person since 1901 to intentionally go over Niagara Falls with a device. The incident reignited debates about the risks of stunts at such dangerous locations. Authorities on both sides of the falls introduced heavy fines to discourage similar attempts. In Canada, fines could reach $10,000, while in the United States they could be as high as $25,000. Despite these penalties, Niagara Falls continues to attract thrill-seekers drawn to its raw power. Robert's story is a reminder of the dangers involved in such daring acts, even when driven by noble intentions. It was July 9, 1960, near Niagara Falls. 7-year-old Roger Woodward, his 17-year-old sister Deanne, and their family friend James Honeycutt set out on what seemed like a simple boat ride on the Niagara River. What happened next became known as the Niagara Miracle, a mix of tragedy and survival. James Honeycutt, 40, was a contractor working on a local hydro project and an avid boater. That Saturday, he invited the Woodward siblings for a scenic trip on the river, launching his 14-foot aluminum boat with a small outboard motor from the Lynch trailer camp. Honeycutt took every precaution, including ensuring Roger and Deanne wore life jackets, per their parents' request. The outing started uneventfully, with the group enjoying the river's calm beauty. About a mile from Horseshoe Falls, the boat's motor failed. Honeycutt realized the propeller pin had broken, leaving them powerless against the river's strong currents. Acting quickly, he began rowing, hoping to guide the boat to safety. Despite his efforts, the current pulled them relentlessly toward the falls. Recognizing the danger, Honeycutt told the children to put on their life jackets. Tragically, he didn't have time to secure one for himself. As the boat entered the dangerous rapids, it struck a rock and capsized, throwing all three into the water. Deanne clung to the overturned boat, desperately fighting the waves. A sudden surge pulled her under, and when she surfaced, she was terrifyingly close to the fall's edge. At Terrapin Point on Goat Island, 44-year-old truck driver John Hayes spotted her struggling in the water. He climbed over a guardrail, hooking one leg through the bars, and shouted for Deanne to swim toward him. Summoning all her strength, she lunged forward, grabbing Hayes' hand on her third attempt. Another bystander, John Quattrochi, helped pull her to safety, just 15 feet from the brink. Meanwhile, Roger remained with Honeycutt as they were swept closer to the falls. The force of the water separated them, sending both over the 167-foot drop of Horseshoe Falls. Roger's small size and life jacket worked in his favor. Weighing only 46 pounds, he landed in deep water past the jagged rocks at the base of the falls. The crew of the Maid of the Mist, 2 tour boats, spotted him. Captain Clifford Keach steered closer, and after several attempts, the crew pulled Roger to safety using a life ring. Miraculously, he escaped with only minor injuries. Roger was taken to Greater Niagara General Hospital in Ontario, while Deanne was treated at Memorial Hospital in New York. Both recovered physically, though the experience left lasting emotional scars. James Honeycutt was not as fortunate. Without a life jacket, he drowned in the powerful waters. His body was found 3 days later, about a quarter-mile downstream. Roger's survival is often called the Niagara Miracle, with experts crediting his lightweight frame and the water's momentum for propelling him safely into deep water. He remains the first person known to survive an unintentional fall over Niagara Falls without a barrel. Though remarkable, this event is also a reminder of the dangers of nature's power. Honeycutt's quick thinking, ensuring the children wore life jackets, likely saved their lives but tragically cost him his own.